When you think of the biggest living thing on Earth, what comes to mind? A blue whale gliding through the ocean? A towering redwood stretching hundreds of feet into the sky? Those are the obvious answers. They're also wrong. The largest living organism on the planet isn't something you can easily see. It's not an animal. It's not a tree. It's a fungus hiding underground, beneath the soil of Oregon's Blue Mountains. And it's been growing there, silently, for thousands of years. Welcome to Science Curiosity today. We're talking about Armillaria ostoyae, better known as the humongous fungus. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to look at forests in a completely different way. Let's start with the scale of this thing, because it's almost hard to believe. This fungus spans over 2,384 acres. That's larger than 1,600 football fields. And it's not a collection of separate organisms growing near each other. Genetically, it is all one connected life form. One single, continuous organism spread across a mountain range. What you'd actually see if you walk through this forest is just mushrooms, and only at certain times of the year. But those mushrooms are only a small, temporary part of the whole. The real organism is a vast underground network of white, thread-like mycelium, feeding on dead wood and plant matter beneath the soil. And the age of this thing? Estimated to be over 8,000 years old. So we're talking about an organism that is enormous, ancient, and as a decomposer plays a genuinely important role in its ecosystem. In fact, its size, age, and ecological role make it one of the largest, most important, and oldest living organisms known to science. But here's the question that probably matters more than any of those numbers. How on earth did anyone find this thing in the first place? The story starts in 1998. A team of forestry scientists in eastern Oregon set out to study something fairly specific, a tree-killing disease. What they uncovered was far more surprising than anything they were looking for. As they investigated, they found a single fungal organism spreading invisibly beneath the soil for miles. Through DNA testing and careful sample matching, the team discovered that mushroom patches which seemed completely separate from one another were actually part of the same genetic individual. In other words, what looked like dozens of unrelated mushroom patches scattered across the forest were all, genetically, the exact same organism. That discovery is what crowned Armillaria ostoyae as the largest known living organism on the planet. So let's get into what Armillaria ostoyae actually is. It's often referred to as the humongous fungus, and it's a type of honey mushroom. But here's the key thing to understand. The mushrooms you might see peeking above the forest floor are just the tip of the iceberg. They're merely the fruiting bodies of a much larger organism. The true giant lives underground a vast network of white, thread-like filaments called mycelium. These threads weave through the soil, feeding on dead plant matter and tree roots. And remember that number 2,384 acres, or 965 hectares, across Oregon's Blue Mountains. The article we're working from points out that this is much larger than a blue whale, and genetically, it's identical across its entire reach. One single life form. That makes it not only the largest organism by area, but also one of the most biologically fascinating. So how does something like this actually spread? The fungus extends through hyphae tiny filaments that release digestive enzymes to break down wood and other plant material. But uniquely, it can also grow something called rhizomorphs dark, root-like structures that stretch across the soil to find new food sources. These rhizomorphs give the organism the ability to reach far beyond a single tree or stump, bridging gaps between nutrients and extending its underground network even further. And as for its age, scientists estimate this fungal network is somewhere between 2,400 and 8,650 years old. Think about that for a second. This ancient life form has witnessed centuries of change above ground storms, seasons, wildfires, and through all of it, it has continued to grow silently below. Now here's a fun detour, because Oregon's giant isn't the only massive fungus that's fascinated scientists. Back in 1992, a similar species, Armillaria gallica, formerly known as Armillaria bulbosa, was found covering 37 acres in Crystal Falls, Michigan. That's a much smaller, less harmful cousin of Oregon's giant. And get this, it's now celebrated annually at the town's Fungus Fest, where locals embrace their unique underground neighbor with pride. Both of these examples, the Oregon giant and the Michigan fungus, reveal something important. Fungi can reach astounding sizes, and they offer valuable lessons about biology, ecology, and evolution. Here's where the story gets a little more complicated, because this giant fungus isn't simply good or bad. It plays a double-edged role. On one side, as a decomposer, it helps maintain forest health by breaking down dead wood and recycling nutrients back into the soil. This keeps the forest floor rich and fertile, supporting the growth of new plants and trees. That's the essential beneficial side of this organism. But on the other side, Armillaria ostoyae is also a pathogen. It causes something called Armillaria root disease, which kills conifer trees by attacking their roots. And in some parts of the US and Canada, large areas of forest have been damaged by its spread. So, while it's a natural part of many ecosystems feeding the soil, recycling nutrients, it can also become destructive when conditions allow it to dominate. It's not villain or hero, it's both, depending on where you're standing in the forest. So why does any of this actually matter, beyond just being a cool fact? As research into fungi and mycelial networks continues, Armillaria ostoyae could provide valuable insights into climate resilience, forest management, and biodiversity. Mycologists and ecologists see real potential here, specifically in understanding how organisms like this maintain cohesion and stability over thousands of years. Its survival may even offer clues about how ecosystems adapt and recover from environmental stress, and that's knowledge that's increasingly important in an era of climate change and habitat destruction. In other words, this isn't just a curiosity. It might actually help us understand how forests survive long-term pressure, which is something we need to understand right now. So let's bring this all together. The story of Armillaria ostoyae shows us that the biggest and most powerful living things aren't always the ones we can see. Its quiet, steady growth reminds us that not all amazing life forms are loud or visible. This humongous fungus is a hidden wonder, and honestly, it shows how much we still have to learn about the world beneath our feet. It could even help scientists understand how forests survive and adapt as our planet changes. So the next time you're walking through a forest, remember, the most impressive thing for miles around might not be the tallest tree. It might be something ancient, massive, and completely invisible, growing quietly in the dark, right beneath your feet. If you found this as fascinating as I did, drop a like, subscribe for more deep dives into the natural world, and let me know in the comments, had you ever heard of the humongous fungus before today? See you in the next one.